Hi, hello, welcome to my channel. This video is going to be my February wrap up. I read 18 books. I did not see that coming. This might be my best reading month ever. 18 books is a lot of books. I would recommend to grab a drink. I have my coffee here because this is gonna take us a while. The first book that I read is The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan. This is the second book in the Shameless series. I read The Roommate, which is the first book, a couple of years ago, but I wasn't as obsessed with it as so many people were. But I finally decided to pick this one up, and this was so good. I am so happy that I finally picked it up. I wish that I had picked it up sooner. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I think that it was really good. This book is about Naomi and Ethan. Ethan is a rabbi and Naomi is an adult actress. Ethan is trying to get more young people to his synagogue and kind of make it more just portable, I guess. And he asks Naomi's help. So they end up creating the seminar about modern intimacy. I loved it. This is Black Cat Golden Retriever vibes. I loved Ethan so much. He was so just adorable. I thought that their relationship was so good. They were definitely like opposites attract in the best way possible. This was such a surprising book to read. I truly believed that this was not gonna be good. And I loved it. It made me really want to read more books from this author, and that's honestly all that you can ask for. I highly recommend this book. And also something else, if you read the first book and the spice was too much for you, this one has definitely less spice, and I did really like that because it focused more on the emotional connection and also not the sexual connection, attraction, whatever you want to call it. Then I read a book on my Kindle, and that is The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer. This is the second book in the Vancouver Storm series. I read the first book, which is called Behind the Net. I didn't like the first one. I thought that the characters didn't have that much like emotional attraction for each other, and I didn't enjoy it. I think that it was mostly spice. So I wasn't expecting that much from The Fake Out, but it's a fake dating book. So I was like, I like fake dating. Let me give it a second chance. And I really liked it. It was really fun. It was definitely different from the first book. It had amazing banter. The banter in this book, one of my favorite. The fake dating aspect was really good. So we have Rory and Hazel. Rory is a hockey player and Hazel is the physiotherapist in the hockey team that Rory plays in. Rory just off the bat is attracted to Hazel, and that was really actually nice. But Hazel is like, no, I don't date hockey players. So you see kind of like that banter going on where he's like flirting and she's like rejecting him basically. Not in a mean way, definitely not in a mean way, but it's really fun to see and entertaining. And then one day Hazel's ex ends up being transferred to the team, and let's just say they didn't have a great breakup. They had a really bad breakup. So Rory and Hazel end up fake dating so that Hazel can show her ex-boyfriend that she's not interested anymore. This book had so much potential, and I think that it could have been even better, but there were some things that I was iffy about. I think that I'm gonna give it like a 3.75. Then we have another book on my Kindle, and that is Sable Pick by Devney Perry. No, that was not great. It's the last book in the Eden series. I read the whole series. I will say I didn't love any of the books, but I do think that it's a great series. Just an easy palate cleanser. And I read the last book, even though I wasn't that interested in it, just so I can finish the series, right? I do not like it. I ended up giving it 2.75. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't think that the characters should end up together. I didn't like how our male main character was not interested in our female main character, right? And then something happens and it's like he flipped a switch and all of a sudden I'm attracted to her. I don't like that when that happens. And I don't like the fact that the female main character was attracted to him from the beginning. And I don't like the progression of the romance. I didn't like the side plot. The side plot was honestly kind of just very boring for me and kind of just not great. Because if you didn't know, Devney Perry does this thing with, I want to say like all of her books, at least all of the books in the Eden series, where there is like the side plot of like mystery or just, I think that the genre is called romantic suspense. Basically there is like the side plot of something happening else, and usually I like that. With the other books I did really enjoyed it, but with this book I didn't care about it. The whole book felt kind of rushed, and I think that it could have been done so much better. So I was very disappointed in that. Then I got obsessed with audiobooks because Audible gave me this like, I don't know, this deal, 3 months for like the 3 months free, I think it is. So I was like, yeah, I want that. I love audiobooks. So I got a little bit crazy. The first audiobook that I listened to was The Starter X. I think that this is like available Audible for free if if you have like the subscription. I don't know what it's called. So you basically don't need like a credit for it. This is by Mia Sosa, which is an author that I have been wanting to try for a bit, and I saw it and it sounded really interesting. We have Vanessa, and in college she made this side gig. Basically, she would date your crush and she would make him ready for you. And what I mean by that is like she would be like kind of like a novel girlfriend that by the time that he went out with you, he would be like, oh my god, you're so great. Years later, her little sister ends up fighting about that side gig, and she's like, oh my god, will you do that for me? I am really attracted to my best friend's brother, Jason, and I really want you to do that. And she's like, Jason does not believe in love, does not believe in like romance, I guess. So can you make him ready? So that's the plot of the book. It sounds kind of weird because obviously she ends up trying to date her sister's crush. So that was kind of weird for me in the beginning. I feel like it was just not ideal, not great. But throughout the book, it got better. Question mark. Obviously, she ends up falling in love with her sister's crush. Yeah, I think that the author actually did a good job with how that whole thing ended. It was definitely like an easy rom-com, and I did have fun. And I laughed a lot, and I did actually like the romance. I feel like it was like a risky plot. It could have gone wrong so easily, but thankfully it didn't. The next book that I read is again on my Kindle. I read Woke Up Like This by Emmy Lee. I have read 2 adult books from this author, so this is a young adult actually. So I was very interested about it, and I was like, okay, it's free on Kindle Unlimited, let me read it. This was really fun. If you like the movie 13 Going on 30, I think, you're really gonna enjoy this book. We have the 2 main characters. They are in high school. They're trying to organize their prom and they don't really like each other. So yeah, especially our female main character. She's like, I don't like him. I hate him. Something happens, I'm not gonna say what, and they wake up and they end up being 30 years old and engaged. Waking up 13 years in the future, engaged to the person that you don't like, that's not amazing. So obviously they need to figure out how they're gonna go back to the past and how they ended up engaged, honestly. And it was so fun. I really enjoyed it. I don't know, there's something about it. It was very sweet, it was very fun. I will say the beginning part where they were still in high school and all of that was kind of, I was expecting that part to not be that much of the story of the book. I was like, okay, yeah, in the first couple of pages they're probably gonna go to the future, right? No, they don't. That takes like a while to happen. So I will say, don't go into this book thinking that in the first couple of chapters they're just gonna go to the future, because that's what I did, and I was kind of like waiting for that, so I didn't enjoy that much the beginning part of the book. But yeah, it was very enjoyable, very fun. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I think that it was a really good young adult book. And then I went into The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochran. This is a book that I have had on my wish list for so long because this was very hyped a couple of years ago, I think. This is a male and male romance, and that's something that I really love. I love queer romances, queer books in general, and this was very interesting to me because it takes place in this like show, kind of like The Bachelor. The guy in that show that is supposed to be finding their true love ends up falling in love with one of the producers of the show. So that sounded really interesting to me, and I was like, I cannot wait to see how that will go. I was actually kind of disappointed with this book. I was expecting a lot more. I ended up giving it a 3.25, so it's not bad by any means, but I do think that in this book the third person was not great for me. I usually don't mind that when it's in the book. I usually don't even pay attention to it, but with this book for some reason it really affected my experience. I was just getting distracted a lot. I don't know, it's just for some reason this one didn't really work for me. And yeah, I did really like the characters. I did enjoy the writing, the experiences kind of, but there were some things that I was like, I don't know. So this was kind of like a letdown, but I do want to read more books from this author because I think that this was the first book that this author ever wrote, I think. So I'm hoping that the other books are just gonna get better and better. Then on another note, I read Love Wager by Lynn Painter. This was so good. This was so fun. This is, again, a perfect rom-com. This is the second book in like a companion duology, I think. The first book is Mr. Wrong Number. I read the book last year and I didn't really love it, but this one, This was so good. I had so much fun. I love the characters. This is like strangers to friends to lovers. We have our two main characters and they end up meeting in real life and having a one-night stand actually. And then a couple of days later, they end up matching in a dating app. For some reason, they decide that they want to be friends and not date. So they're like, okay, we're just gonna create this wager that we're just gonna go on so many dates. And the first person that finds like, I don't know, love, I guess, wins, right? And it's basically them going through dates and all of that jazz. And that was so entertaining. I loved the characters. I love the banter in this book. It was so fun. I love like the little like text messages that you see, especially in the beginning. It was so fun. This felt like a breath of fresh air. I loved it so much. It's a pretty short book. I think that is like almost 300 pages. Yeah, it's 290 pages. So if you want something really quick, fast-paced, highly recommend this one. Then I read a book that I have had on my physical TBR for so freaking long, and that is The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. This is a very popular author, especially like the past year. And I have owned this book and actually the second book in this series. This is like a trilogy, a companion trilogy. And I have been staring at them, but I have been scared to pick them up because it's just, what if I don't like them? It's a very popular author and I really want to like the writing, but what if I don't? So I have been avoiding it, but finally this month I decided to pick this one up and I ate it up. It was so good. Why didn't nobody tell me? Literally the whole internet raving about this author. I ended up giving this 4 stars. There were some things in this book that were just kind of iffy for me. For example, there is like a trope, I guess. I'm always kind of like, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't love it when it happens. I don't love blurred lines, especially when it has to do with like a third person. It's not my kind of vibe. If you don't have an issue with it, you probably are really gonna enjoy this book, but for me that kind of made me be kind of like not that obsessed with it, I will say. But I love the writing, I love the characters, I love just everything about it except for that little part. And at some point in this book you do get really frustrated with the main female character and how she's not willing to communicate, but I still really liked it. And just thinking about this book constantly and honestly about this universe. The next book that I read is another young adult book, and that is Like a Love Song by Gabriela Martins. I honestly thought that this was an adult book. Really don't know why I thought that, because it does say on the back YA rom-com. But I picked this one up. I was like, okay, fake dating, a pretty short book, so I'm probably gonna enjoy it, you know? I did not. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. I was so disappointed with this book. I was so bored throughout the whole book. This is obviously a young adult book, like I said, and we have our female main character and she's a pop star basically, and she ends up having this public breakup, and let's just say that she doesn't handle it that amazingly. So her PR team is like, you need to fake date someone, you need to be seen dating someone so that you can get on top of it and not seem like you are that affected by your breakup. So she ends up fake dating this guy. I was so excited, and if you know like an adult romance that is kind of like that vibe, please let me know, because I do want to read that in an adult romance. It's just, I feel like with a young adult it was kind of like weird. I didn't love it. I just, how much tension can you have in a young adult romance? And I feel like with fake dating you need to have tension of some sort, and I feel like this one did not have any tension. And honestly, I didn't care about the characters, I didn't care about the romance, I didn't care about anything about them. That was very disappointing, but at least it's not on my physical TBR anymore, so you win some, you lose some. The next book that I picked up was Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. Again, I didn't love this. I also gave this book 2.5 stars, which is so sad. I really like Tessa Bailey's writing, I will say. She is like a very much so like a hit or miss author for me. There are some books from her that I really enjoy, but there are some books like this one from her that I don't. This one was not amazing. This is Grumpy Egg Sunshine. This is a small town romance, and we have Julian and Haley. Haley, like a long time ago, had like a crush on Julian, and then Julian ended up moving out of the city and just not coming back for years. And years later, they end up like meeting again when he comes back, and Haley kind of like starts writing these letters to him, like anonymously. So he ends up being attracted to her through the letters, and at the same time, he ends up being attracted to her in real life. So if you like that, I feel like it's kind of a tiny bit different, because I think usually the girl is the one that is falling in love with the guy in like 2 different ways without knowing it, I guess. But yeah, I didn't love the writing. This was mostly spice. This was just attraction, like superficial attraction. I don't see the characters ended up together. I feel like they didn't even match. That's my opinion. I don't think that they should be together. I don't think that they matched personality wise. Just no. So after I read that, I was like, okay, let me just go on to the second book, which is Unfortunately Yours. I have been interested in this book ever since it was announced, because this is like fake marriage of convenience, and that's actually one of the tropes that I really love. So I was like, okay, that's gonna be really fun, and it's also like rivals to lovers kind of situation. So I was like, rivals to lovers, marriage of convenience, I'm sold. I'm buying this. So I've had this on my bookshelf and I have been waiting to read it, because obviously this is the second book in this duology, so I had to read this one first, even though they are like companion, so you don't really have to read them in order, but that's what I prefer to do. So I picked this one up. I will say the beginning was kind of like slow for me. I didn't love the beginning, but I did end up giving this book 4 stars. I laughed, I love the characters, and I love like the little side plots that this book had, whereas with the first one I didn't care about them. Also, this book has like a cat, and that cat was adorable. It was like the highlight of the book. I loved it so much. The guy in this book was amazing. He's like an ex-Navy SEAL, I think, and he was so protective of her, but they had like crazy banter, and I really liked it. And then because I really did enjoy The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez, I decided to pick up the second book in this series, which is the Happy Ever After playlist. I loved this book so much. This is One of Us is Famous, and I ate it up. This was so good. I did not expect that. I gave this 4.25. One of my favorite books this month. We have Sloane and Jason. Something happens in the first book that I don't actually want to spoil. It affects the story of this book. Anyways, this book is about Sloane and Jason. Sloane, one day while she's driving, she finds this dog, so she ends up trying to contact the owner of the dog. So she leaves like a lot of voicemails because the owner doesn't pick up, and then eventually a couple of days later, maybe even weeks, I think, I'm not sure, the owner does end up contacting her, and he's like, a friend was babysitting him and the friend lost him. I'm out of the country right now, so I will just have someone pick him up. And Sloane is like, no, I can take care of him until you come back. And from that, they actually end up talking to each other with texts and creating this kind of like friendship, kind of. And obviously eventually he does come back in the country and they do end up meeting up. I loved how Jason was famous and Sloane didn't know, and then I don't know, I really liked it. It was very interesting. One of my favorite parts about this book was literally the text in the beginning. They were so cute. I love them so much. I love texts in a book. There's just something about them that just every single time I eat them up, and this was no exception. So I'm so happy. I'm so happy that I like Abby Jimenez writing. I was really scared that I wouldn't. So I'm very excited to read the rest of the books. And like I said, I do have Audible now, and I was in the mood for an audiobook, and I found the new Camelot trilogy by Sierra Simone on there for free with your membership, and I binged it. I read all 3 of the books. So we have American Queen, American Prince, and American King. I ate the series up. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was because they were like audiobooks, so it was easier for me to listen to them, I guess, while I was doing other things and just get obsessed with it. I don't think that I would love them as much if I was actually like reading the book, the physical book, but they were so fun. I ended up giving American Queen 3 stars. It was my favorite. I liked it. It was fun, but honestly, if the other books were not on Audible for free, I would not have read them, because American Queen was not my favorite. Then we have American Prince, which I gave 4.25. This was so good. I loved the whole like past and present timeline. I loved it. I cried with that book. Obsessed with it. And then we have American King, which I ended up giving a 3.5 stars, mostly because of the ending. The ending was kind of like, what is happening? What is happening here? Okay, let me preface this by saying that if you want to read the series, I would say just put your morals aside for a minute and just, yeah. We have our female main character, and then we have our 2 male main characters. And in every book, you kind of get deeper into each character's kind of like story, thoughts, and all of that. This trilogy is about the romantic relationship between the President of the United States, the Vice President, and the First Lady. Yeah, that sounds interesting, right? Yeah, definitely was. I don't know what to tell you. I enjoyed it. I had fun. I honestly got really attached to the characters. I definitely recommend the audiobooks. I don't know if the actual book was that good, because obviously with audiobooks, like I said, you can do other things while listening. You can, I don't know, play a game on your phone, whatever. But it was definitely very entertaining. I will say there were some moments, especially in the first book and then at the end of the third book, there were things happening that I wasn't expecting. And also I do think that the writing is kind of different. The first book was kind of harder for me to get into it, and I honestly thought that I would DNF it for a minute, but I did push through it, and then you really get used to the writing, so it doesn't end up being that bad. But it's just the first book, you really just need to push through it for a while. And then I decided to finish a series that I have started like 2 years ago, I think, and that is the New York Billionaire series by Olivia Hale. I had read the first 2 books, but I honestly did not remember them, so I ended up rereading them. The first book is Think Outside the Box. I ended up giving this 3.5. Then we have Saved by the Boss, which I ended up giving it a 3 stars. And then we have like the third book, which I had not read in the past, which is Say Yes to the Boss, and I ended up giving that a 3.75. It was definitely like my favorite of the series. This whole series is about billionaires. At some point it does get very repetitive. We have these 4 guys that have like this company where they buy businesses and they fix them, kind of. Venture capitalists, I think it's called. At some point it does end up being the same and the same and the same, and I will say the romances kind of, most of them are workplace romance, honestly. I feel like we could have done something different there, you know? I will say the third book, Say Yes to the Boss, is a fake marriage, so I did actually really enjoy that book, hence the higher rating. If you want really fast, quick, easy reads, I do actually recommend them. They are pretty fun. So those are all of the books that I read this month. I would say that I had like a pretty good reading month. The average rating was 3.5, which is not bad, definitely not bad. And I read some books that I have had on my physical TBR for so long, and some books that I had like just on my want to read list for so long. So I'm very, very happy about it, and I'm hoping that the year is gonna continue like that. Maybe not with 18 books per month, but you know, maybe with like 10 or 12 books, you know, that feels possible. But yeah, that's all I had to say. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you want to. I hope that I will see you in my next video. Bye.